I'm Steve Pike. I'm the CEO of the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, the very proud owner of this facility, and it is my distinct pleasure to welcome all of you to the facility this afternoon. I want to welcome in particular the governor, whenever it is that he does arrive. Lars Peterson and Eric Stevens from Vineyard Wind, who obviously have been key partners over the last couple of years on this facility. Commissioner Judson from the Department of Energy Resources, Mayor Mitchell from the city of New Bedford, and we have quite a cast from the local and South Coast delegation. Senator Pacheco, Senator Rodriguez was here, assume he's still here. Representative Schmid, Representative Haddad, Representative Cabral, and I think Representative Markey was here. Believe he's still in the House as well. Thanks to all of you for your ongoing support of offshore wind and Mass EC's efforts here in New Bedford. I also want to take a quick moment to thank a few folks from Mass CEC, Nils Bolgan, Kristen Anton, and Greg Dolan, all of whom have worked on both the construction of the facility as well as the ongoing operations. And while I get to stand up here and take credit for all the terrific work they do, it is the terrific work that they do, and I'm just the beneficiary of that. Also want to thank somebody who has just recently left Mass CEC, but was truly mission critical to getting this project done, and frankly to really helping build the momentum in Massachusetts and across the country for offshore wind, and that's Bill White, who has moved on to greener pastures, shall we say. I hope with some degree of regret, but only time will tell on that. And the door is still open, Bill, although maybe not for long. But thank you to Bill for all of his efforts as well. So again, my pleasure to welcome you here to mark what is a significant step forward in realizing the potential and the opportunity that offshore wind affords Massachusetts. Not only is it an opportunity to create Massachusetts-made energy, which, as we all know, is something that is very difficult to come by. It's an opportunity to realize competitively priced clean energy, something that up to this point has been somewhat elusive, and certainly with offshore wind, in the United States is brand new, given that the industry is as well. Also an opportunity to realize the thousands of jobs that these projects can bring over the course of their construction, as well as post-construction operation and maintenance, and an opportunity to realize the billions of dollars in economic activity that each of these projects presents. They are massive undertakings. It's not just a couple $1 million here and there by any means. It's a couple of $1 billion per project. So a tremendous step forward. And Massachusetts hasn't gotten here overnight by any means. Those of you that have been in the game know there's been a long slog. It's been 17, 18 years of starts, of missteps, of restarts, and the like. While we still have a lot of work in front of us, and Lars and Eric do in particular, we've really we've come an awful long way, and the momentum is really building. I was just down in Washington D.C. last week at the American Wind Energy Association Offshore Wind Conference in Washington D.C. And it's every coastal state from Massachusetts to Maryland that is buying and or building offshore wind. So for years, the industry and the developers have been talking about needing a pipeline. We're right on the cusp of seeing that pipeline really manifest itself. The developments over the last 12 months have truly been remarkable. one thing that we've shifted to over time is moving from building, for instance, this project and doing a lot of pre-development work, for the projects that are coming forward, to focusing more on supply chain and workforce. We're not the only ones that have moved in that direction. Every single one of those states is fighting hard to capture the supply chain benefits that this industry presents. But I think Massachusetts has set itself apart in a few different ways. One is that experience that I talked about. I don't think that there's a knowledge base, an offshore wind knowledge base in the country that is stronger than that which is here in Massachusetts, and that's at all levels. The proximity to the largest wind resource on the eastern seaboard is without a doubt a distinct advantage, and is one reason that that this facility was built here in New Bedford. The project that is closest to actually getting to construction. That is without a doubt a benefit to Massachusetts. A lot of states now on our heels, Rhode Island, New Jersey, New York, among them. A workforce that is, that's just champing at the bit to launch this industry in the United States. There's a lot of enthusiasm out there, among sort of workforce cadres to be the first out of the gate to gain that experience that's necessary to launch the industry successfully. And then lastly, it's this facility, the New Bedford Marine Commerce Terminal. Really, truly is a unique facility in the United States. It was custom designed and custom built with offshore wind in mind. In particular, being able to support the extremely heavy loads that the components required to build a facility offshore require. But we've also heard that it's not enough. This facility is not enough. We hear it quite consistently from Lars and Eric and their colleagues that are looking to develop these projects. We need more infrastructure. And so, hearing that for quite some time, it was the Mass CEC team that undertook ports and infrastructure. Governor? Very well, thank you. A ports and infrastructure assessment to look at other facilities throughout the state. We looked in Boston, we looked at additional facilities here in New Bedford, we looked at a facility in Quincy, we looked at facilities in Fall River, we looked at the facility at Brayton Point in Somerset as well. And that all goes to our goal of trying to capture this opportunity for New Bedford, for Fall River, capture this opportunity for the entire South Coast, and capture this opportunity for the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And I think we're off to a tremendous start. And it's been quite an effort, without a doubt. Our next speaker has been at the forefront of that effort, particularly over the last couple of years. Commissioner Judson and her team at DOER have been responsible for structuring the procurement process that Massachusetts used coming out of the legislation in 2016, as well as the evaluation process, which was no small undertaking. DOER and Mass CEC work hand in hand on virtually all things offshore wind. So it's my pleasure to welcome Commissioner Judith Judson.
Good afternoon. As Steve said, I'm Judith Judson, the Commissioner of the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources. I want to thank you all for being here today to celebrate another tremendous milestone on the Commonwealth's continued progress to achieve our clean energy goals. I want to thank Steve for hosting us here, for the Mass CEC team for how much work went into this facility. I also want to thank Mayor Mitchell and the City of New Bedford. We're thrilled to be here to shine a spotlight on New Bedford, who is soon to become a launching pad for offshore wind development and economic growth. lastly, I want to thank all our elected officials who joined us here today, who worked with us to pass bipartisan, comprehensive energy legislation that has resulted in this project and many of our clean energy successes. So I want to thank you for that. And it is my honor to introduce to you our governor, Charlie Baker, who is a champion of our Commonwealth and has gone to great lengths to meet the needs of our citizens, making energy, environment, and economic development a top priority for his administration. Over the last 4 years, under his leadership, we have worked tirelessly to solve some of our biggest energy challenges so that we can have a clean, affordable, resilient energy future for all the citizens in the Commonwealth. And we've led the nation on many clean energy initiatives through our innovative solar incentive program called SMART. We will double the amount of solar in the Commonwealth at half the cost to ratepayers, and in addition, be the first in the nation to have a solar incentive that is for storage, for solar paired with storage. By funding $20 million in storage projects, as well as $40 million in energy resiliency projects, will better prepare us for severe weather. And we're ranking #1 in energy efficiency for the 8th consecutive year in a row. And what this does is it lowers energy bills for our residents and for our local businesses. And of course, by procuring large amounts, very large amounts of renewable energy, our large-scale hydroelectric procurement, and of course, what we're celebrating today, our largest in the nation offshore wind project, the 800-megawatt Vineyard wind project. Ultimately, the governor is working to make our energy system safe, reliable, affordable for the citizens of the Commonwealth while providing resources for our communities and for our local economy. Governor, thank you for your leadership and commitment to these critical energy issues and for being with us today. And now it gives me pleasure to welcome Governor Charlie Baker.
Well, let me start first of all by thanking Steve for hosting us and thanking you, Commissioner, for your work on this issue, and you, Mr. Mayor, for yours as well, and so many others from the legislative delegation. I'm fond of saying that the executive branch doesn't get to do stuff unless the legislature gives us permission. And in this particular case, through a series of legislative initiatives, starting with the stuff that dates all the way back to the previous administration and to the original energy around, legislation around green energy and goals and objectives. The Commonwealth's been on a path here for the better part of 10 years. And I think in some ways today is the realization of what I would call one of those milestone moments in that 10-year path. And I would just say 3 things. The first is you sometimes can tell if you're doing something that is forward-looking by whether or not others choose to imitate it. And one of the most exciting elements of this whole initiative for me, and I think for many of us who've been involved in this, is the fact that the second all those bids came in, Connecticut wanted one of them, Rhode Island wanted one of them, and all of a sudden New York, New Jersey, Virginia, and Delaware, all the way down the coast, suddenly decided they thought offshore wind was pretty cool. I think that had a lot to do with a number of things, but the biggest thing was the representation as a result of that procurement that you could get a big chunk of clean, renewable energy at a price people could afford to pay. And that had to do with the way the legislation was structured, and that had to do with the way the procurement was written, and that had to do with the way the process rolled out. And I am very excited about the fact that this is no longer just about us, okay? This is about us and everybody else up and down the East Coast suddenly deciding that this is a place they want to play in, a space they want to be in, and they're all falling all over themselves to get there as fast as they can. I happen to think the deliberate process we took was probably a little more appropriate if you're going to be the first in the deep end. It's a joke, which we were. But I also think the fact that there are so many people engaging a series of fast-following activities at this point is a big statement, and we should all take a tremendous amount of pride in that. The second thing is the opportunity to sign this lease here today is the result, again, of many years' worth of work on the part of a lot of people who believed that this could be a big initiative and a big opportunity for the South Coast of the Commonwealth. And I think in some ways it's one thing to talk the talk, it's another to actually get to the point where you can deliver on what people have talked about for a long time. And I would also say on this, I'm sure it was a long time coming for a lot of people, but the bottom line is it's a really big deal, and sometimes really big deals take a little longer to get there than some others. And the third thing I would say is this is not the end of this story. In fact, this is the beginning of this story. If we happen to have a second term, we're looking forward to going out to bid to chase another 800 megawatts on this stuff. And we're going to expect the bidders to sharpen their pencils every bit as aggressively as they did the last time. There are no free lunches here in the Commonwealth. You have to earn your seat at the table. But the bottom line here is we have a chance to continue to build on what's already something that has attracted the attention of a lot of people all the way down to Washington, D.C. And I think the fact that you now have the Secretary of the Interior talking about putting additional federal waters out to bid is a big statement by the federal government that they recognize and appreciate the opportunity that we've demonstrated is possible here. And what I really want to say to those gathered, and especially to those who've been working these waters, pun intended, for a long time, that you should all be incredibly proud of what you've achieved and what you've accomplished. This is a total team sport. There's no question about it. There's a lot of folks who have a role to play and a lot of people who have a piece of this that needs to get from here to there. And for some, it's been going on for a really long time. But I would argue in some ways that this is very much a series of seminal events that are going to change the dynamic and the trajectory of offshore wind in the United States forever. And you should all take tremendous pride in that achievement because you all own a piece of it. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, Governor. Another aspect of the federal auctions that's coming up was, I believe it was 19 certified potential bidders. So hopefully adding to the competition that we've already seen here in Massachusetts, maybe much to our next speaker's dismay. But nonetheless, Lars Peterson is the CEO of Vineyard Wind. Speaking of partners, has certainly been one to us. I mentioned the guidance that we've received, and it certainly has been across the board. But Lars and Eric and their team have really been on the forefront of that, making sure that Massachusetts goes about this in the right way. So it's my pleasure to welcome Lars up to the podium and just to remind him that the eyes of Massachusetts are truly upon you, Lars.
So message received, both on the competitive nature on the future auctions and all the eyes on me. So thank you very much, Governor Baker. Thank you, Assistant Secretary Woodcock, Commissioner Judson, Mayor Mitchell, Mass CC, and Steve Pike, the representatives and the senators, all other dignitaries. It's a great day for us. It's a day where we make the first very concrete step in defining what is going to be a huge offshore wind project off the coast of Massachusetts. It is not going to be the most expensive or biggest contract we're going to sign, or if it is, it's going to be a great day for me as well. But it's going to be a very important contract because this is where we lock down the key infrastructure that is needed for an offshore wind project. I think it is we often talk about it as an offshore wind project, but in reality, these are big marine construction projects that ends with offshore wind turbines, and therefore the marine element of it is very, very important. So it's a great day today for Vineyard Wind. It's a great day for our shareholders, Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners and Avangrid Renewables. It's the beginning of a series of key contracts that we will be entering into over the next 12 months. It is going to be a multi-billion dollar contract spread that we will have. And all of those contracts together will help us build the team that will deliver the first large-scale offshore wind farm here in the United States. So 2 years from now, December 2020, you will start seeing activity right on the other side of this building, right over here. You will see massive components being brought in. You will see staging of offshore wind turbines. You will see highly specialized heavy lift vessels coming in and out of the harbor. And you will see a lot of people working on preparing onshore and offshore all the works that will be going on. And I think it will be a true testament to what offshore wind is. It is a clean, affordable, renewable energy project that creates a new industry. So while today is a first for Vineyard Wind, I just want to take a little bit of time of going back to the first of firsts, because we wouldn't have been here if August 2016 hadn't happened, where an act relative to energy diversity was signed. I was actually watching it on YouTube this morning, the speech from Governor Baker. It was a beautiful day with a lot of sunshine. And I think at that point in time, it was not obvious that offshore wind would come to the shores of United States. And it was very much not in the making that it would be an industry that is as large as we're seeing today. I think 10 years from now, it will be seen as the right move at the right time, creating an opportunity to deliver the affordable energy in a clean way, but also creating an industry. And you don't get a lot of opportunities like that. I was following the evolution of the bill a little bit from the distance. We were not a shareholder in this project at this point in time. And I can remember discussing with our shareholders, so what is this going to end up? Is this going to be one project? Is it going to be two projects? Or is it going to be an industry? And I think at that point in time, 2 years back in time from today, we thought if there was 800 megawatts being procured by 2020, we would have had an excellent outcome. And we probably thought that was it for offshore wind in the United States. And if you now fast forward to today, Steve mentioned it, I think all the states, right down to Virginia, are now procuring offshore wind. I think industry consensus is that more than 10,000 megawatts will be procured in the next 5-6 years. And we will have all of that operational before 2030. So going from a few projects to an industry, it's no longer something we are discussing at various conferences. It's very much something that is happening here, and it's happening right now. And it's a great feeling to be part of that. And we are very proud that we were selected by Massachusetts to deliver the first 800 megawatts. And we hope to do more, and we will sharpen our pencil, and we will be there. So I think it's not only marking sort of the signing of the lease for this facility for Vineyard Wind. I think it is the beginning of an industry. I said it right when we were selected that we thought this was not going to only be one project, it's going to be an industry. So I would be thinking of that when we sign the papers shortly. And what does it mean actually for New Bedford, the South Coast, and Massachusetts? Because I think it's all three. It's not only New Bedford, it is the South Coast. It is going to be the whole of Massachusetts. What does it mean that a new industry will be emerging? So we will be putting together a multi-billion dollar project. There will be suppliers coming from overseas who want to set up shop here in Massachusetts. They want to look for facilities where they can train people, where they can stage components, where they can manufacture components. There will be existing businesses in Massachusetts that have a maritime experience who want to migrate into this industry, develop existing service offerings or new service offerings to develop to our suppliers, their sub-suppliers, etc. And I think we will see joint ventures from overseas companies teaming up with Massachusetts companies to form new service offerings. And all of that will be happening not only in New Bedford, but on the South Coast and the rest of Massachusetts. And I think, given that this is a marine infrastructure project, I think having top-of-the-line maritime infrastructure like the New Bedford Marine Commerce Terminal, that's key. And I think, as Steve said, and we've been saying that quite a lot, it's a good starting point, but it's not going to be the point we're at 10 years from now. We hope that this project can help develop other facilities. We have seen that the Mass CEC have identified Braden Point as an excellent facility for manufacturing of components or staging of components, and we're in discussion with other suppliers to see if we can make that happen. And I think the good news is there's a lot of interest from suppliers to be part of this first project, but there's also a lot of competition from other states. And I think this continued investment and being early on is what will be a lot of benefit for Massachusetts if we can keep up that opportunity. So today we are very pleased to be able to sign this document. We look forward to deliver a large offshore wind farm. We will be removing carbon emissions from the state of Massachusetts to the tune of 1.6 million metric tons per year. It's equivalent of removing 325,000 cars from the roads. And we will be generating nearly 6% of the state's load, equivalent to around 450,000 households. So it's going to be a huge project, and we're very proud that we got this opportunity. So we will remain committed to delivering on the goal of not only delivering the project at a low price, but also delivering the economic development opportunities that we see. So looking forward to signing with you, Steve, and looking forward to the cooperation. Thank you.
So I know Lars's vision of a bustle of activity on the facility is a vision that is shared not just by Mass CEC, but also by the city of New Bedford. Mayor Mitchell has certainly advocated for his city very strongly. And has been a key partner in not only developing that vision for this facility, but also helping us get to the point where we are today, where we see that vision starting to become reality. So, Mayor Mitchell.
All right, thanks everybody. Welcome. I think because we own the ground underneath here, we're actually the landlord. So the landlord has arrived. But this is yet another big milestone for the Commonwealth's march to lead in offshore wind. And you're absolutely right, Governor. There are lots of people. Many of them are in this room. And many couldn't be here today, but and wish they could. But it's big. This is a really big step forward, and it makes it all the more real. We were driving over here, and Neil Mello and I were lamenting how one of the local news commentators, as recently as this morning, was blaming me for the demise of Cape Wind, and I thought, wait till you start to see what happens here in about a year. I think people will forget very quickly, but it is a big deal, and I really want to thank you, Governor, and your team, Commissioner Judson, of course, Steve, everybody at the CEC, Bill White, who I'm really glad could be here today, everybody for continuing to move all of this along, because it's all new, right? This is the first utility-scale offshore wind project in the United States. You guys we're all together breaking new ground, and whether it's the procurement, whether it's the lease itself, there's nothing like it in the United States, and so the work that it's taken to get to this point is significant. The good news will be that it'll get easier as things go on when we all don't have to reinvent the wheel every time one of these projects comes up. But it's very heartening. It's been the mark of a great local and statewide partnership. I want to congratulate Lars and Eric on being the counterparty on this lease and for winning the procurement and for all the hard work that they've done. The fact that they established the joint venture's headquarters here in the city is significant as well. They hired a lot of local folks at very senior positions, and I think that's really important to us. And we look forward to the continuing partnership with you guys. It's really, as you get settled in, as you throw down roots here, it'll be very important, for us to have, all of us to have a close working relationship so that we can make sure that we're setting you up for success here. And I just want to thank my team as well. Steve mentioned the depth of knowledge at every level of government, and certainly true at the CEC, but it's true here at the municipal and at the port level. My Chief of Staff, Neil Mello, Tony Sapienza, the chair of both the Regeneration Committee as well as the New Bedford EDC, Derek Santos, the executive director of the EDC, our port director, Ed Washburn, and the managing director of the New Bedford Wind Energy Center, Paul Vigen, all folks who are steeped in this stuff, and I think it just makes it all the easier, not only to have conversations with the Commonwealth, but also with industry, right? I think fair to say, and you guys would be the first to agree, our folks on the ground can talk the talk. And I want to thank the members of the City Council who have been very supportive along the way. Hugh Dunn is here, Brad Markey, Scott Lima, all of you. Thank you for your support of the wind energy industry. And then the legislators, we've had countless conversations along the way, especially in the lead up to the legislation. I remember that first, that dinner that we had, Pat, at the Waterfront Grill when we first started talking about this stuff. It feels like a long time ago, but you and Mike and Paul and Tony and Mark Montigny as well, all of us we've drank the Kool-Aid a while ago and things have moved along, and it is stunning just how rapidly it's all accelerating. We, of course, one of the rationales, of course, for the work has been as a measure to stem climate change, and you alluded to the amount of carbon that would effectively be removed or offset by the work here, and that's important. What we're talking primarily today is about economic development, but more particularly to my mind, as the mayor of a city that is not part of a major metro, is capital attraction. We live in an era in which capital is seemingly flowing inexorably to major metros. And that's why if you go to any city that has a professional sports team these days, it just so happens that you see force of construction cranes, you see $50 entree meals, you see the signs of wealth and development that are stunning. But we also know that the rest of America has to compete, even if we don't have the same cards to play. The research centers, the international airports, and other attributes that make those major metros very competitive. For New Bedford, this is somewhat of a really sort of unique opportunity to swim against that tide. Another water pun. Sorry, Governor. I'm going to try to keep it up as long as I can. And that's how we see it. And but there is, so we've been excited about the opportunity for a while because of the obvious advantages, and you hit on them, Steve. It's the geographic proximity, it's this infrastructure here, it's the procurement system in the state, it's all those things and more. But what we have to do, I mean, there are a couple of things that I would note. I think it bears emphasizing. The first is that the imitators up and down the East Coast are in fact competitors, and we have to be prepared to compete. And a lot of times, we want it to be in the mode of collaboration, and sometimes that becomes a little cliche. Let's not forget that sometimes we just have to outcompete everybody, and we do have a lead now as the first mover, as again the folks who have probably the best knowledge base, but we know that the likes of, especially of New York and New Jersey, with large ratepayer bases, are going to be able to compete very effectively. And places like Elizabeth, New Jersey, and Paulsboro, New Jersey, and Baltimore, and New London, Connecticut, and Brooklyn, these are all places, Quonset, of course, and Port, they're all going to be in this game competing because they want that supply chain as much as we do. In the industry, we're in a window right now where, as Lars noted, things are going to ramp up really, really quickly, and some of the decisions that manufacturers in particular are going to make, but others in the next few years, will be permanent decisions. There will be permanent investment decisions made that will affect the landscape for the years to come. So we've got to continue to compete and be oriented toward competing. The second thing I'll say is that the Port of New Bedford is really the linchpin to Massachusetts' effectiveness in competing for investment. And that's not just because of the proximity and because of infrastructure, but because this is a full-service port. This is the center of the commercial fishing industry on the East Coast. ports are organic things. There's a big difference between ports and waterfronts. Ports are entities. They are abstractions, really. They are sets of businesses that operate together almost seamlessly sometimes, but they evolve and they are prepared for new opportunities. There's no better place than New Bedford, Massachusetts, for this industry to settle down. There just isn't, hands down. We have the best seafaring workforce in America, but it's also a place where everybody knows everyone else and they're open to opportunity and they innovate. And that network is going to count for a lot in the years ahead. And there is a need for more infrastructure investment. I'll put in that plug just briefly, but more to come. Right. Steve said I advocate, right? So there you go. And the last thing I'll say is, that primary industry also has to coexist successfully with offshore wind. The fishing industry can be an asset. It should be an asset to offshore wind as it develops here in the United States. And the decisions that are made now will count for a lot. The work that Ed Washburn in particular has done with you guys, Lars and Eric, and working through alignment and adjacency issues will count for a lot, and they will set the precedent on the East Coast, and that's a good thing. It'll be a good thing for New Bedford. But there's also a great deal of work to do in determining where in New York, where in the New York Bight windmills will go, and that will be a very key decision, especially for the Port of New Bedford, because most of that fish comes here, as many of you know. All important decisions. There's still a lot of work to happen, but in the next few years, if we work together and we do it the right way, if we focus, we continue to talk, then we will set not just New Bedford up well, but the entire Commonwealth in the years to come. And I look forward to the work. Again, Governor Lars, congratulations and thank you today.
So terrific. I don't believe I see Chairman Strauss-Fitzy. Okay, great. So sorry that Chairman Strauss couldn't join us. Senator Montigny also sent his regrets. But I think we've all acknowledged the important role that the legislature has played in this process. And Representative Cabral was certainly active on Beacon Hill. From our perspective, it was his engagement here in New Bedford at home that was equally important. Quite frankly, keeping his eye on things that we were up to make sure that we didn't misstep, that we kept the best interests of his constituents in mind as we were building the facility. So it's my pleasure to welcome Representative Antonio Cabral.
Well, good afternoon. I am delighted to be here with all of you. Welcome, Governor, to my district. This is a really important moment in time. This is a pivotal moment for the city of New Bedford, for the South Coast, and for the Commonwealth. The signing of this lease, it certainly shows the collective foresight that all of us in this room and beyond this room had when we made the decisions that we made and the capital investments that we made in this facility. It took courage, it took vision, it took commitment, but we got it done. And also, the vision of creating not only the facility, but creating legislation, putting legislation together to make this industry happen. We probably can say this starts in 2008 when we passed the Green Communities Act in 2008 that begun this process of beginning to really look at offshore wind as a possibility for us here in Massachusetts, in the South Coast, and in New Bedford. I spent countless hours myself and Representative Haddad both in this small library in Somerset and in some of our offices at Beacon in Boston at the State House, where a parade of folks came through week after week. We talked, we discussed to try to, at the end of that process, to put piece of legislation together that made sense for us, and I think we did that. And Representative Haddad and the rest of the South Coast delegation worked tirelessly on that process. So in January of 2015, we would have legislation. We filed two pieces of legislation, the larger comprehensive one led by Representative Haddad and all of us as lead co-sponsors, and then the other piece that I was the lead sponsor that created the opportunity and the language for the extra, for the 800 megawatts procurement. Because on the bigger piece, it just talked about 400. And I thought, and at the time, a staff person in my office, my legal counsel, Arthur, felt that 800 was the number to begin with, ought to be the number to begin with. And he kept advocating for that. So we decided to do two pieces of legislation at a time, and then that piece got incorporated into the final piece, into the final bill, that really set the stage for the possibility of 800 at first, rather than going small increments, but to go big. And this is how you create an industry, as Lars was talking about. You know, we felt that was the moment we needed to do that. And the legislature sometimes doesn't get all the credit that it should get. The legislature, and led by the South Coast, Representative Haddad, myself, Representative Schmidt, Senator Roderick, Senator Pacheco, who's been a lead on renewables and clean energy for many years, and Senator Montigny and others, clearly we set the stage to make it happen. We convinced the rest of leadership, and I think Representative Haddad had a great deal on that as well, that this is what we needed to do in Massachusetts, to be at the beginning of the pipeline, to finally produce electricity once again, here, right here, in the South Coast. I don't have to tell you the story about New Bedford, right? The first oil refinery was in New Bedford before the discovery of the oil in Pennsylvania. And then all those skills, all that skill went from here really to Pennsylvania. This moment today, we are bringing it back, but with a whole different industry. Clean, renewable energy, which is the future, not only for us in the Commonwealth, but I think for the country. And I must tell you that we need to continue to lead in this area. In order to continue to lead, we have to have vision, we gotta be bold. And that means we gotta go beyond 1,600 megawatts. So I'm prepared, along with the rest of this delegation, to come January to file legislation to double or triple that amount. We haven't decided on the number yet. But I can tell you it's gonna be at least another 16 or more. Legislation that will be filed, and I look forward, come November 6th, if I'm successful, November 6th, I look forward to work with you, Governor, and your administration and the rest of my colleagues to make sure that can happen. Because this is really where we're going to be able to build that supply chain here is by going big and being bold, and not allowing New York or Delaware or Virginia or any other state to really take the lead from us. I think we need to lead. And while I'm at it, I would like, once November 6th rolls around, and I'm sure, hopefully all of us are successful that day, I would like to encourage you to do the RFP for the other 800 before next year, by the end of this year. Let's put that RFP out for the other 800. Be December, preferably December, but let's not wait until late spring. And then we'll work in legislation to create the ability for the administration to do more. And I think that's what we need to do. And I know you care deeply on this, in this area as well. I know you've been pushing since you've been in office around clean energy and renewables. And I know that you, with us, we can create this kind of coming together and really making this a big industry here. New Bedford needs that. The South Coast needs that, and Massachusetts needs that. You know, and we need to continue creating those partnerships that we have. Partnerships with higher education, be Bristol Community College, be UMass, ASMAST and UMass at UMD, and the partnerships with labor. We have labor in this area that are extremely skilled. We have, be it Local 385 or others, that are ready to work with us, ready to work with Lars and others in this state to make it happen, to have, so we can create the kind of skills in the South Coast, so we can recruit local folks to also become skilled workers in this industry. They're looking for those opportunities. This, in the end, it's about also creating opportunities for people and workers in this community and in this state. So I think we are on our way. This is the beginning, but this is a pivotal moment. So thank you, all of you. Thank you, Lars. Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Steve, for all your work. And then, CEC has been a tremendous partner on this, and they ought to be congratulated as well. Let's give them a hand, really. So thank you very much.
All right, terrific. Thank you, Representative. Lars, like to now sign the lease. Governor, Commissioner Judson, legislative, because it is a South Coast effort. If we could have the whole South Coast legislative delegation, that would be terrific. So thank all of you. I know so many of you have worked on this too and worked hard to get this to this point. As we've all mentioned, there's a lot more work to do, so we look forward to having your ongoing support and appreciate all of you joining us today. So thank you.